Yesterday is a memory. Today is history. Tomorrow is in the hands of one man.
Bond. You know the rest.
Tomorrow never dies. Now shooting around the world.
And welcome back to the Supercast. This is Steve Z here, the man who put the Z in Supercast. And of course, I'm here with this other guy. You probably know him by the name of
The Super Foch, the man who put the super in Supercast.
And we have a very special show for you today.
Do?
Well, we pretty much say that all the time.
But we still do.
Yes. And this one is a James Bond film, a series that we hold near and dear to our heart.
Mm-hmm.
But this one came out actually while we were live, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we have some experience, we have some memories with it, and that is the Pierce Brosnan film, Tomorrow Never Dies.
And this is, of course, the follow-up to GoldenEye, correct?
That's correct.
Yes. And
It's a sophomore outing.
And a lot of people are very divisive about this film. Obviously, everybody loves GoldenEye, at least everybody I've ever talked to. But there's a lot of people that like this film, Tomorrow Never Dies, and there's a lot of people that don't like this film. We like this film. I mean, not to speak for Steve, but we've always kind of really liked this film. This movie is, I don't want to call it a guilty pleasure, but I guess that'd be the closest thing to it. Is that what you would say?
No, I wouldn't really classify as that.
Okay.
I think this one, it's weird, and we'll get into it more later.
Yeah.
It's not like GoldenEye, obviously. It's
No.
not that hardcore, but it's
No.
not as silly as the later Bronson films. So this one,
Right. It's still sort of grounded.
Yeah.
It's still sort of, and it's funny how much of this plot was sort of futuristic as opposed to how it is today. I mean, a lot of the
Definitely.
plot is pretty much what we deal with, and
Yeah.
I don't think it's a coincidence. I mean, I guess it is a coincidence that the bad guy in this actually dresses like what's his name from Apple. You know, he's got the glasses, he's got the dark.
Steve Jobs.
I remember seeing that, and I was like, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah, they actually based him off of Rupert Murdoch, though. We can
Okay.
get into that later. But Tomorrow Never Dies, it came out in 1997. Like you said, it's the follow-up to GoldenEye, so there was high expectations. It was a big one because GoldenEye just blew everybody away. They're just like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I cannot believe James Bond could be this cool.
Right.
And I was super excited about this one. I remember I got this magazine that was kind of promo in it, and it talked about everything. It talked about all the actors, had interviews with all the actors, with the film director. It talked about the special effects. It talked about the guns they used, all that stuff. And I was just so excited because it was just my first Bond film I was going to go see in the theater.
Right.
And circled the date, went and watched it. Just so happens there was another big film that came out that weekend that we kind of had a split family with it. My dad and I went and watched Tomorrow Never Dies, and my sister and my mom went and watched Titanic.
I knew it was gonna be Titanic. I knew that. It was like, as soon as you said that, I was like, he's gonna mention Titanic. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and you would think this film would get totally swallowed up by that, but it actually did pretty well box office.
Yeah.
In fact, better than GoldenEye, but critically, not as well.
Yeah, like I said, this movie is very divisive. There's a lot of people that say it's good, a lot of people that don't. And there's a little bit of silly stuff here, and there's some stuff we can definitely critique. But I do want to start out by just kind of going over the cast here because I think that's an important beginning, don't you think?
I think so. Yeah, I guess we can talk about the big stars anyway.
Of course, it's Pierce Brosnan's sophomore outing as James Bond. He started with GoldenEye, and he was pretty much praised for his performance as James Bond in GoldenEye. So there's not a lot of people that were upset he came back for this.
No, it was
A lot of good names, and we'll go through those guys as we get through the plot here.
Yeah. This one, the plot is actually really good. I think that's probably the best thing about it.
Yes.
Like you were saying, it's sort of prophetic. It's ahead of its time, and I think that's why this film is being reappreciated now, as we've gotten out of the Craig era into like a different time. And I guess we'll start the pre-title sequence, but Bond, he's out there investigating a terrorist arms dealing, where basically you have all these terrorists meeting up and swapping just weapons, and it's weapons from all over the world. And one of these weapons there is a GPS decoder, which I guess it just plays with the GPS system. And there's this guy named Gupta that picks it up there, but Bond doesn't think about that too much at this moment, because it just so happens that the British Navy go ahead and jump the gun and send in a missile. So now Bond just noticed, guys, why did you do that? There's some nukes here, and he has to get those nukes out. So it's kind of a race against the clock. What do you think about this opening title sequence?
Yep.
Yeah.
I love this. This is one of my favorite opening title sequences, or pre-title sequences. Definitely in Bronson's era, but maybe in all of Bond, just because, as you said, and I think it even adds to it now, thinking about it, it does tie into the main plot. So it's not just kind of a spectacle, but it is sort of part of the plot and everything. But the action is great. I love, anything with cars or planes and stuff like that. And this is fighter pilots. I mean, this is a fighter pilot sequence. And, of course, Bond's a commander, and he's got some flying experience. So, he's going to fly the plane eventually. He's going to jump in there. And he certainly does. And he kind of you think he escapes with the plane. Everything's good before the bomb goes off. What happens? He's got a guy in his back seat that's trying to choke him out. And so what does he do? The only thing he can do, he ejects him out. Pretty crazy. And but a really exciting beginning. So yeah, I love the way this movie starts.
Yeah, it's definitely sets the tone for what you're going to get into. I think this Bond in particular has a lot more action, a lot more explosions.
Yep.
Just a lot of times where Bond's just getting a machine gun and just unloading the clips. I mean, he's just going nuts. And then we definitely get that at the beginning of this, and it's always neat to see sort of that race against time, just like we know that it's going to happen.
Will he make it? Of course he's going to make it, but it's just the exhilarating of,
It's like, how is he going to do
it? Exactly. Because he's got to get through a bunch of bad guys.
Yeah, and he does it in Bond fashion. He gets into the fighter jets and ejects the guy, sort of a la Goldfinger. Gets out of there, and he's just like, it's just another day at the office for Bond. He's just like, no big deal.
Yeah.
And then we get into our title sequence, and I don't know about you, man. I like the title sequence, but I do not like this song.
Really?
No, I just think it's kind of lame.
Okay, so I watched a thing about the Bond songs a few weeks ago, and I love most of the songs. There's a few I don't like, but I actually really like this song. I think it's a good song. I don't know, I like the girl's voice. I think she's pretty awesome. So, Sheryl Crow. I still like the song. I still think it's a good song. It's not the best. I'll give you that. It's not,
Yeah,
I probably wouldn't put it top 10.
It's not as bad as some of the Craig songs.
Exactly. Yes. Including maybe the last one. That one was not my favorite at all. But we won't get into that. That's neither here nor there. But I will defend this song. I think Sheryl Crow's a pretty good singer. I like the song. Doesn't bother me too bad.
Yeah, I think my thing is, I don't think it was intended, because I don't know if you follow this story about the end song from like the end credits.
Yeah.
That one sounds more like a traditional James Bond song. It sounds like sort of like Goldfinger, some Shirley Bassey type vibe. And that was the one that you actually hear in the score. It seems like that was the intended one, but then they were just like, you know what, Sheryl Crow, she's pretty big right now. Let's let her do it.
Hey, whatever works. Like I said, it's not the best, but I don't think it's definitely the worst. It gets the job done for whatever,
And the big thing is, it's only like 2 minutes long.
Exactly.
You're getting into the actual film now, and it starts off big time. We get introduced to the conflict early. The best Bond films, this is what they do. And we see that our buddy Elliot Carver, as you said, is played by Jonathan Pryce. We'll go over his performance more later, but he's basically orchestrated this whole, what could escalate into World War III. He has this British submarine attacked, and makes it look like it's the Chinese doing it, and nobody is the wiser because, sure enough, the British think they're in international waters, but they're actually in Chinese territory, and that's because our GPS decoder. So Bond has to go figure out what's happening. He goes on the journey. He investigates Carver. He also runs into the awesome Chinese special service, sort of like his counterpart, Wei Lin, played by Michelle Yeoh. And along the way, he just gets in a lot of action sequences. Has to avert World War III. It's pretty exciting. Like I said, it's a lot of action, a lot of explosions. Let's get into the big stuff now.
I really love this story, though. Like we said, it's a little bit ahead of its time. I think it probably flew over a lot of people's head at the time because of, GPS was not that big. The internet was definitely in its infancy at this point. So to go back and watch this with 2022 eyes, there's a lot more that makes sense about this film than might have when we were kids and watched this film for the first time. Of course, you have that scene where he's talking to everybody, having basically a Zoom call, kind of like this, with all those news reporters and stuff like that. And he is really just wanting to start trouble everywhere and make everybody hate each other and blame different things on different people. Of course, you mentioned that about the Chinese. And I gotta say, I think Jonathan Pryce's performance as Elliot Carver's one of my favorite, at least modern, Bond bad guys. I think he's slimy. I think he is not appealing at all, and just there's just not much to like about him. But Jonathan Pryce's performance is definitely worth watching for sure.
Yeah, I like him a lot too, and I know there are a lot of people that are detractors and don't like it. I think he's very believable. I think this is the kind of villain you would see in real life. He definitely a megalomaniac. He's got a huge ego. At the same time, he knows how to press people's buttons, and he knows what people want to read. And that's sort of what we see in this world now. We have a lot of people that understand clickbait. Let's put this in the title. People click on it. That's all we care about. And this film is definitely that. He's like, oh, just need a big headline, something explosive. I know, I'll just create an explosion. And it's just kind of crazy. I like him better than your regular mustache twirling Bond villain that you run into.
And as far as his associates go, Gupta, you mentioned him. He's of course at the beginning before the title sequence, but then he shows up throughout the film. I really liked him. I thought he was kind of a weaselly, he could do anything with a kind of sort of like Boris from GoldenEye a little bit. But I'll tell you who I don't like, and I'm sorry, I didn't like him as a kid, and I still don't like him. And that is Stamper. You
don't like him?
I don't like Stamper. I mean, he kind of reminds me of the dude from Russia with Love, the big blonde, muscly dude, which I'm sure that's not a coincidence. But I don't know. I'd rather have Gupta and Elliot Carver by themselves and not that guy. I mean, I get why he's part of the plot and everything. Gotta have a strong guy for Bond to... Because obviously Elliot Carver's not gonna throw a punch.
No.
And so you gotta have a muscle guy. I get it, but I didn't care for him. No offense to the guy, but character itself just did not do much for me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's nostalgia for me. I really like this
That's cool.
henchman. He's one of my favorite henchmen just because...
Yeah, I remember you liking him.
He's got it all. He's strong. He's invulnerable. he's also kind of devious. He's just
he's a bad dude. There's no doubt about it.
I like to torture people. Dr. Kaufman's my mentor, and... I don't know. I liked him. I just like these type of guys, and he actually got some speaking parts, unlike some of the ones in the Roger Moore era, the tall blonde German guys that don't talk. This is one that actually talks, and I liked him. I think I understand his character a little bit just because he seems very efficient. When things don't go to plan, he's just like he's very frazzled. He's just like I don't know what to do. And then this time I noticed he's kind of stupid.
Yeah.
If Carver's not telling him what to do, he's just kind of like, I don't know what to do, man.
Right.
Like when they couldn't get into Bond's car
Yep.
And he's just like, "You can't get in the car." Just sitting there,
Yep.
freezing there for a sec.
Yeah.
And then he sees Bond come out of the hotel, and he's like, what do we do now?"
Yeah.
They're like, "Sure enough, you have to kill him."
That's something I didn't notice too. That he was that, and maybe that's why I don't like him. He's just so stupid. He's just like, I don't know. I wasn't
Yeah.
afraid of him that much as I am. Maybe even the guy from Russia with Love. I think I'd be more afraid of him
Yeah.
for some reason.
And that's kind of why I like him, because he is more scary than Gupta or Carver.
Yeah.
Because Gupta,
Right.
they actually cut out his villain sort of thing that he did. Apparently, that guy's a magician, and he was supposed to like throw cards at Bond that try to kill him with those, but they cut that out of the film. They thought that was kind of ridiculous.
Wow, that's interesting. I had not heard that. That's interesting.
Yeah, but the villains, I think they are pretty good. I mean, like we said, Carver, very believable, well written, and I think Jonathan Pryce does a good job of hamming it up in some instances, but sometimes he's very like
Yeah.
serious, and whenever Paris betrays him later in the movie, I really feel it. I don't feel like it's like comic booky. I feel like, oh, this guy's a real guy.
Right.
This is hurting him.
Right. Yep. And of course, guys, before we move on, this is, of course, the movie is pretty old, so we're going to spoil it. So if you guys have not seen this film, here's your spoiler warning. But when we get into the film itself, we get to Carver's first gala, his first event, where he's going to launch his little network. And of course, Bond has to be there to see what's up with that. And he meets one of his old flames, played by Terry Hatcher, and that is, of course, Carver's current wife, Paris. What'd you think of Terry Hatcher's performance in this movie?
I'm probably gonna offend you with this, but
Oh gosh, here we go.
I think she looks great,
Yeah.
but I don't think the acting's great.
I agree with you on that, actually, Sarah.
Yeah,
I would probably disagree with you about 12, 13, 14 years ago. But yeah, watching this film with 30-something eyes, I don't know if it's the writing, I don't know if it's I don't know what it was, but she just annoyed me when she was on screen. I was totally annoyed by Terry Hatcher's performance. And I hate to say that.
I think it's a little bit of few things. I think
Probably.
for one, it's the writing. It's like, so
Yeah.
she's mad to see Bond at first. She's like,
Yeah.
"You just left me high and dry," and then
Yeah.
she covers for Bond later. Like, "Oh, he's just a banker, I met him," and then she eventually helps him out and everything. So it's like, which side are you on, girl?
Right,
I
exactly.
don't really understand that. And just the line delivery, sometimes it's just kind of like, okay, are you just reading these lines for the first time right now? Is this your table
Yeah.
read? So I don't know. I think she's definitely not one of the best parts of it. Like I said, she looks great. I'm sure she had a lot of fun doing it.
Right.
And I think the other key is she and Pierce did not get along.
Yeah, I've heard that. Mm-hmm.
And apparently he was really mean to her, and he felt bad later because she was pregnant. And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were kind of moody and kind of like that because you're pregnant right now." So he apologized later,
Yeah.
but and we'll get into that later. Apparently he hated this movie while he was making it.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, he didn't like the director. He didn't like Jonathan Pryce. He didn't like Terry Hatcher. The only person he liked was Michelle Yeoh, really.
What about Judi Dench as him? Do you like her?
Oh, I guess she's just in it for a little bit.
But I agree with you, though. I was really disappointed how bad Terry Hatcher's performance was, because I was like, oh yeah, Terry Hatcher's in this film. And you're like, I mean, she's pretty and everything, but number one, she does not fit with Elliot, which I know that's not a big thing, because obviously she turns on him, but it's like, there's no way Elliot and her would get together. Just no way. I don't care, money or not, but either way.
Yeah, and even that, I don't see her and Bond getting together too much.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Doesn't seem like his type of girl, and like it's
Right.
supposed to be a girl that he had a pretty serious relationship with, not like we just hung out or I just met her on a mission or something.
And that's the thing, it's like, I hate when movies do this where they're like, oh, they had a past. And you're like, I don't know that. I don't care. Like, you don't care because you have no connection with that. There's no way to, And they don't really expound upon that any more than, oh, you guys were together years ago. Well, okay. Why'd they break up? Make us care about these people. Make us care about Terry Hatcher's character, because that's the thing that really surprised me. By the time she dies, you really don't care.
Yeah,
And maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. I don't know. But I was just like, oh wow, she's dead.
Yeah, I think you're
Okay.
supposed to because, I mean,
I think you are too.
Bond, he definitely acts very sad about it. He's just like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I can't believe this. And this is coming from a guy that his job is to kill people. So he should be pretty over this by now.
Yeah.
So he seems very affected by it, and
Yeah.
we, the audience, don't. And I think that's
No.
definitely a flaw in the film, but at the same time,
I agree.
I'm going to let it pass just because I think the overall tone of this film is more in line with like a Roger Moore film than
Yeah.
it is with like a Timothy Dalton.
Right. And the thing is, it happens early on in the film, so I'm not going to say that it just ruins the film to have that happen, because again, Terry Hatcher's in the film for all of like 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. And while, you know, you hate for innocent people, I don't know how innocent she really was, but you hate for somebody like that to die, but it just did not affect me enough to go, oh my gosh, that's terrible. I hate this film. I was just like, okay, whatever. Let's move on.
Definitely. So I guess we should talk about the two leads.
Yep.
Who do you want to do first, Bond or Wei Lin?
Let's go with Wei Lin, since she's kind of the feature part, because obviously Brosnan did more movies after this. So let's talk about her performance, and I'll start with you, man. What did you remember from her performance, and what surprised you about her performance this go around?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that because
Sure.
this was one that when I first watched it in the theater, I was kind of like I didn't know what to think really.
Yeah.
I'd never seen a woman kick this much butt in the movie, and this is 1997. That's
Right.
not what you see.
This is before Kill Bill,
Yeah,
right?
This is before all that. I hadn't really watched any Hong Kong films at this point,
Yep.
so this was like all new to me. But as I've
Right.
grown older and as I've gotten used to that sort of thing, and I've seen more Michelle Yeoh films and things like that,
Yeah.
I think she's the best part of the film. I think she's
Agreed.
just so beautiful. I think she's just so competent. I mean, you don't see that a lot in Bond girls. And I mean, just like, let's take the scene where she and Bond are infiltrating Carver's newspaper factory,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she accidentally triggered the alarm or something, and all the guys start chasing Bond, and she's just like walking down the walls like, hey, how's it going? I just think that scene's awesome. I think
Yeah.
just
Yep.
anytime she does action, she's just really believable in it. She looks awesome. She did all her own stunts.
Yeah.
She does all the fight scenes herself, and especially that one in the bicycle shop. She kicked butt. I mean, you can definitely see that she's from the school of Jackie Chan. She's been in some of his movies and learned
Yeah.
how to use props and things like that to fight with. And I just really think she adds a lot to the film, and definitely helps what they were going for with this particular Bond.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I remember watching this as a little kid, and I liked her. She was great and everything. But watching now, I really appreciated that, and I think this was sort of ahead of its time, is she was not just your damsel in distress. She wasn't just your, oh, Bond, save me kind of thing. I think she really did. I think she was very equal to Bond. I think she was not so much just the lady Bond girl, but also just his equal, and was a great partner. And I don't think a lot of people give her enough credit that about her performance. Because say what you want about the rest of the film, I think that she has great chemistry with Pierce Brosnan. I thought her acting was good. I didn't remember her acting being as good as it was. I thought her acting. Granted, she was in the movie longer, but I thought her acting was way better than what Terry Hatcher did. So, I mean, you know, as far as her performance goes, I think she added a whole lot to the film. I remember not liking it back in the day, and I really didn't buy it this time, though, is the romance part.
Yeah,
I really just not. It was like, I get why they do it, you know, whatever. But I really think it would have been okay had they not had the romance part. What about you?
yeah, it does seem kind of tacked on. A
Little bit.
It doesn't seem like it's just like, okay, let's do this. And they could have done that right. They could have said, okay, we're done with the job now.
Yep.
Let's just hang out, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, we got nothing to do.
Yeah.
I think they could have gone that route, but just trying to make it like your normal Bond sort of romance.
Bond got to hook up with somebody.
Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, they just felt like they had to do this point in the series. But
Yep.
like I said, she's awesome, and
She is.
agreeing with you, it was ahead of the time. I mean, Barbara Broccoli actually tried to get this into a spin-off with her. But the studio shut it down. They're like, nobody's going to go see a woman-led sort of thing. It has nothing to do with Bond.
Boy, how times have changed.
It's changed. I mean, they were like, okay, let's do expanded universe for James Bond.
Exactly.
They did a Cube movie.
Yep.
But yeah, I
Oh,
think
man.
she's
Oh, wow.
great. And Michelle Yeoh, like I said, she's a legend. I still have not seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, but I plan on rectifying that pretty soon.
Same here, buddy. And maybe we can talk about it on a future episode, so stick around for that. Because I definitely want to see that. I thought about that the other day, so yeah, there you go. But yeah, I think she's very, very good. I really love her performance. Let's see. What about Judi Dench's M, man?
I think she's good. I mean, she's only in it for like 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
I do like that they changed up the briefing a little bit. They did it in a car, which to me adds a lot to this film because it seems it's very paced, like frantically. It's like it never stops to breathe, really. So
Yeah.
I like that.
I love Judi Dench's M, and you know, for her to go from Pierce Brosnan to Daniel Craig's, gotta give her credit because she really does adapt to both. Because it's obviously two different worlds, and to go from one to the other and still be as great, I think Judi Dench is a treasure, and I think she's, she could play the M as long as she wanted. I don't think anybody would have complained. Even though, like you said, she's not in the movie too long, I thought she's still cool and still cool to see Judi Dench's M. Big fan.
And Q, this is Desmond Llewellyn's last film
It is, isn't it?
where it's
Yeah.
just him, because I think in the next one it's R. John Cleese. But yeah, I think he's pretty good in this. I like his and Pierce. I think they had great camaraderie, great chemistry. It's definitely sort of like harkens back to the Roger Moore
Yeah,
days.
it does. And the guy's obviously old. He's getting on up there, and it looks like he's struggling just to walk around at this point. So that's kind of sad to see. But his comedic timing is just there. I mean, that's something he doesn't lose, is his comedic timing. And like you said, I think he had really good chemistry with Pierce, with every Bond that he worked with. I love him in this film. So yeah,
Yeah, and the gadgets, I gotta say, they're pretty good in this one.
definitely. I love the remote control on the phone. I mean, that's ahead of its time right there. I mean,
Oh yeah, that's what the Teslas do now.
exactly. So, who wouldn't want a car like that where you could just drive it with your cell phone in the back seat?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
my neighbors.
that was pretty cool.
My neighbors will pull their car out of the garage with their phone. I'm like, I'm just so envious. That's so cool.
That's crazy. Nice.
Yeah, but yeah, that we'll get into that action sequence later. But I love the gadgets. I love the car. That cell phone is just so practical, even though it looks funny now. But that cell phone with a taser built in and everything, it's really cool.
Ironically, Samantha Bond, who plays Moneypenny, and she was with Pierce, I think, most of his run, I do believe.
Yeah.
And
The
I
whole
really
time.
like her as Moneypenny. I think she's got good chemistry with Bond. I think she is. I love the character of Moneypenny. I think it's one of my favorite Bond sidekicks, if you will. And I thought that Samantha Bond does a really good job in all of the films. But I think she's pretty good in this one.
I think so too, but I think we got to talk about the man of the hour. The last performance we got to talk
Yes, sir.
about. Do you think Pierce puts a good one on this one?
I do. I really do. I think he... That's the thing. Even in the bad ones, I think he's good. I think he was born to play James Bond. And I'm just going to say it out loud. I prefer his Bond to Daniel Craig's.
Yeah.
I think he's just more suave. I think he, just looks better in a tux. He is just your, quintessential Bond. And, no offense to any of the other Bonds, including Daniel. I think he's fine a lot of the time. But I think he's what makes these movies worth watching. Even the really bad ones is because he's just that cool, that confident. And you just believe he's going to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And so, yeah, I really love his performance in this film. Possibly if there had been a weaker Bond, I probably wouldn't like this film as much.
Yeah, I'm going to not be as glowing on mine because
Okay.
if GoldenEye hadn't preceded this, I'd be like, yeah, he did a good job. But to me, I think he does better in that film as far as pulling off the suave and cool at the same time.
Sure.
This one, he has it in some scenes. I think definitely the party scene we mentioned, that's just, that's Bond in a tux. It's just, he looks perfect. I mean,
True.
that's one thing about Pierce Brosnan you cannot take away. He looks like Bond. He is a sort of like, you look Bond up in the dictionary,
Right.
that's probably going to be him. and he's got that. And I love his humor in this one. I think they did a better job in this one with that. I know I've mentioned it a few times. This one reminds me sort of more of a Roger Moore performance. It's a little more snarky, a lot more tongue in cheek. He winks at the camera a few times.
Right.
It's just like, yeah, I'm in on the joke, guys. I know this is silly. And I like that. I like my Bond to do that because these movies are supposed to be fun when it's all said and done. Bond is about escapism. It's about just having a good time. And I like that aspect of it. But there's some scenes where he just seems like, I'm not going to say he's phoning it in. It's just like he's not committing as much. And I'm not going to blame that on him as much as I do the director.
Or the writing. I think sometimes the writing
yeah.
is a little weak in this film. And I think what makes a lot of people not like the film is because the writing is a little bit lackadaisical. They're a little bit more on fluff than some of the dialogue. So I think...
Yeah, and it's so hit and miss. Like, some
Right.
things are really well written,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, what happened?
Right.
Yeah, that's the same thing I feel about the direction as we talk about him.
Yeah.
Roger Spottiswoode,
Yeah.
who he's known for action films, but also some comedies. And I don't know what it is about his direction. I like it sometimes.
Right.
Like, some of the action sequences are great. Like, the helicopters sequence with the motorcycle, I love that. I
Yep.
love the car chase we were talking about earlier. And several of the scenes on the boat I like. Especially the stuff with Wei Lin, I think that's shot really well. But then some other times I'm like, you know what? I've seen this better. I've seen this better in other Bond films. I've seen this better in, like, when he's trying to make homage to, like, Hong Kong action films. I'm like, I've seen it better in, like, Jackie Chan movies or Jet Li films of the time period. He's definitely trying to rip off John Woo at some points. It just feels like he's not very authentic as a director. It feels like he's just doing a job.
Yeah, I think that there could have been better direction in some of the scenes. Like I said, some of the scenes are kind of awkward. In fact, the scene where Terry Hatcher's character and Bond reunites, kind of an awkward scene. I think that one is a little flat and everything. And I think that's why you don't care when she dies. It's just because they didn't develop the character enough for you to go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened, and I can't believe she's dead. So I kind of blame that a little bit on the direction. Could have been part of the writing too. Maybe the writing was a little weak at times, but I think that's a lot of it anyway.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's just the framing of the shots. And once again, I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm comparing it to Martin Campbell and GoldenEye.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just thinking, this film was shot awesome. Like, I remember the close-ups of Bond and everything.
Right.
He looks so cool. Like, the one-liners are that much better. And this one, like, just the way it's framed, it does not have the same magnitude when big stuff happens.
Right. I agree. I think the plot itself is good at times, and then it just kind of flattens out a little bit. I'm not sure, again, if that's more the writing or the direction. But I'll tell you something that does really well in this film, and that is the action.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so let's get into the action sequences. And I know you're a huge martial arts fan, so I want to hear your, go as long as you want on the action here, man. What'd you like? What'd you not like? I give you the floor, my friend.
Yeah, I think they did an honest attempt at trying to recreate some of the Hong Kong stuff that was going at this time.
Yep.
Like, there's never been a stunt in a Bond film like that where they jump off and grab on the banner. There's like, I mean, that's just straight out of a Jackie Chan or something there. That's
Right.
definitely, I like that. And I like when they're fighting with the handcuffs on. I really think that's awesome. I'm like,
Yes.
like, did you guys rehearse
Yeah.
this? Did you? I mean, Bond and Wei Lin, how did you guys read each other's mind like this? I mean, but that's typically what you see in those types of films, and definitely love the bike fighting scene. I think the martial arts is really good. It's very authentic. I don't know who did the choreography for it because it does not feel like your typical Bond choreography. So I think that is top notch. I know exactly what they're going for with this film, what they're trying to create, and that's, once again, that's why I'm giving the film a knock a little bit, just because at the end when they're trying to do John Woo, it doesn't work for me. I mean, like, they even do the slowdown when she's coming out on the corner, and I'm like, that's just no.
Yeah, I think the action was really good. Like I said, we mentioned the opener And I just got through watching Top Gun Maverick the other day, and we'll do a show on that later on. Stick around for that. And to go from them really flying a plane to what Pierce does, where you can tell he's not really flying the plane, you know.
Oh yeah.
But it's still an exciting opening. I still stand by it. I thought the visual itself is good enough. I really like the action. I really love the martial arts stuff. I thought Michelle Yeoh really shines on those fighting sequences. I mean, nobody taught her how to fight.
Yeah.
She was coming in there ready to go, and I think she really does a good job. And of course Bond, he's fine. He does his thing. I like Bond's action sequences with Pierce most of the time. Obviously, you missed the tank from GoldenEye. I still think that's one of the coolest things ever in a Bond film. But yeah, all around, I think that's what really elevates this film from the kind of bad writing and kind of wonky storyline a little bit. I think action is really, really good. I think it's probably the best, aside from GoldenEye, in Pierce Brosnan's era.
Definitely, and just when you're thinking about it, that final fight between Bond and Stamper, I really like it. It's very,
Yes.
I mean, because you could tell he's overmatched, but I can feel the punches, I can feel that, and just really good action, really cool. I mean, if you like explosions, this is your movie. I mean, I'm just like, how is that garage still standing after all those missiles being
No
shot
kidding.
in there?
Yeah, no kidding. One thing I didn't like is at the end, Bond kills
Yeah,
Carver.
it's sort of anticlimactic.
It really, really was. I was like, you gotta lock that guy up. You gotta put that guy in prison. You don't just... I mean, I get why they did that, and it's kind of a dramatic ending, and, you know, it's so corny. It's kind of corny. I will even go that far and say it's kind of a corny death kind of thing.
Generally, like a Bond villain like that, something gets them. Like thinking like
Yeah.
Dr. No, his hands that are fake, they are what would end up making him die or something like that. Or it seems like it should be more than just the way it happens in the film. But I guess one last thing I want to talk about that's really awesome in this film.
Sure.
David Arnold, who has scored several Bond films, this is his first, and I think that is the best part of this film. Really, is the score. It's just perfect. And when you compare, I mean, we've been saying it, GoldenEye, comparing it the whole time. This one blows GoldenEye's score out of the water.
I agree
It's
with
just
you.
like,
Yeah.
GoldenEye score, we made fun of it when we were reviewing
Yes.
it, but this one, you cannot say anything bad about David Arnold
No.
and what he brings, because it's kind of like he's recreating the 60s Bond, but in the 90s, and it's really great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed his score, and I didn't remember it as much as I thought I would have when I watched this movie before. And yeah, you're right. I think the score makes up for whatever you think about the title song or opening song, whatever. And I think it is a very strong output on his part. And I agree with you. I think he does harken back to the 60s a little bit and tries to give a little modern feel to it. But yeah, that's something that surprised me. I just did not remember that score being that good. So kudos to him. I think he did a really, really outstanding job.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
You know, this is a movie that we grew up on, that we played the game, and we both kind of have a little soft spot. But, you know, I understand people, if they don't like this film, that are true Bond fans. I'm not going to say you're not a true Bond fan if you don't like this film, because I understand that. It's just, I think this movie's entertaining. This is not your grounded Bond, necessarily, like we got with the Craig Bonds. So I think you kind of allow a little bit of silliness. There's obviously things, and we talked about, that could have been better. Some of the writing with Terry Hatcher's character and that sort of thing. But I think all in all, this is a fun movie, and I think that's what a Bond movie is supposed to be, is fun. You're not looking for Shakespeare. You're not looking for, you know, Citizen Kane. And I know I would say that, but the point is, this is a fun film for me. I know it is for you. So, yeah, I really like this film, and I'm really glad that we talked about it.
Yeah, that's mainly my thought. Is I had a lot of fun with this movie. I really liked watching it. It's one that it's a weird place for me when it comes to ranking the Bond films, because sometimes I will want to rank it up higher, and then sometimes I'm like, I want to rank it a little bit lower. It's one that I want to put on like a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon and just, like, you know, I just want to escape for a little bit, just chill. And it's a good one for that. And you definitely need those type of
Exactly.
movies in your life. And definitely it has its flaws, like we've been saying, but I think the pros totally outweigh that, and it's one that should be reevaluated. Like we've been saying, this plot, the whole premise, is definitely should be appreciated in the 21st century when we live in the day where somebody could tweet something and change the whole course of just events for the next little bit, and that's sort of what we're getting in this film. So definitely worth watching again if you haven't seen it in a while, and if you've never seen it because you've only watched, like, I guess the new Bond films, you gotta go back and watch that classic Bond. It's perfect.
Yeah, definitely. Tell us what you guys think in the comments. Let you know, are you guys a fan of Tomorrow Never Dies? Are you a fan of any of the Bonds after GoldenEye for Pierce? What do you think? We leave it up to you guys. We do appreciate everyone who follows us on Twitter at Supercast with a Z, and of course our YouTube channel. Just look for Supercast, and we're still on Spotify, and so just look for us on there. Guys, we have got a classic coming up on our next episode, and it is going to be a bit different than this episode, so stick around. So for my partner Steve Z, I'm the Superfoge. We'll see you next time on the Supercast.